We call on our unions and communities to join us in the fight against those who are advancing a fundamentally corrupt and immoral agenda that would decimate the American working class in the name of greed.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Welcome, y'all. Thank you for coming out this afternoon. My name is Jeff Meldal. I'm the acting president of the Chattanooga Area Labor Council and a member of Ironworkers Local 704. We are have been scrambled to the defense of workers throughout the federal government who have been, as you all probably know, undergoing, if not outright layoffs and unplanned firings. They have been given notice and then had the notice rescinded. They have lost all sense of security in their livelihoods, and they are going from day to day not knowing, what the future looks like for them professionally, and this is a situation that's affecting real human beings who have homes and families, and they count on that paycheck to make medical bills, rent, and all of the things that we all require money for to get through life in the United States, and to have that put into this sort of jeopardy is unacceptable. And if there's one positive side effect from this, is that we've begun to see a lot of new organization among federal workers and workers who are realizing that they can't count on their bosses, even if their bosses supposedly are acting in the public good, and they need organization at the level of their workplace. So we hope that that trend will continue, but throughout all of the comments by myself and the following speakers, let's keep in mind that these are real people going to work every day, just like you and I. Most of us are probably here after work, and that the insecurity that they've been placed in by these reckless actions of their higher-ups in the government structure is unacceptable, and they shouldn't stand for it, and they shouldn't have to. So we're going to stand with them. Where we're standing right now, we are downstream from two TVA-administered nuclear power plants. That's a lot of regional federal workers, as well as cheap electricity these nuke plants provide and have provided for the last 80 years or so, a steady stream of work and a reliable path for people in Hamilton County and the surrounding counties, a dignified path to the middle class. Many members of the local in whose hall we're now standing, my local 704, now work at TVA. A lot spend their whole careers there. Some dip in and out. Those who have seen both sides, what we call the downtown side and the TVA side, will tell you it's different at TVA. There's higher wages, but there's higher safety standards, there's more paperwork, there's a slower pace of work. You might wait all day to get the proper authorization to make a 2-inch weld. That might sound frustrating, and it does to me. I stay downtown as much as I can. But if you take a step back and you realize that you're talking about applying a broken electrical current hotter than the surface of the sun to a fragile, complicated structure that is splitting uranium atoms to give us energy, you think that is actually something that I want a fair bit of care and a lot of people upstream of me making decisions about before I, willy-nilly go to my work. Maybe we should take a deep breath and think about all those contingencies and the people whose work it is to make sure that those nuclear plants continue putting out energy and not fallout for us. Those are federal workers. They're making the lights stay on here in Chattanooga, and they're making sure that the steam from those cooling towers doesn't one day give way to a mushroom cloud. There's a reason for all those apparently inefficient structures, TVA and at other agencies, just as you can be sure that every pipe, every wire, every piece of machinery in those nuke plants got put there for a reason. You and I would rightly be appalled if anybody came in and just started pulling things apart willy-nilly. If we were in a nuke plant, we would stop them. It would be our duty to stop them. You would consider it imperative to stop them if you were there, and the structures that are being torn apart recklessly by the sort of vandals in the Department of Government Efficiency is a comparable situation. A carefully built up over years network of interconnected jobs that to a layperson may seem insignificant, but to the people who hold them and the people who rely on them, they're anything but. These are not just jobs in the federal government, in many cases good union jobs, although they would be worth saving just for that reason. They're not just public sector jobs that exist to provide service, not exclusively profit, although they would also be worth saving for that reason. But these are vital pieces of our national infrastructure that cannot be eliminated without dire risk to the entire fabric of our country. Thank you. I now have the honor of passing the mic off to Jacob Morrison. He is a member of AFGE Local 1858 and the president of the North Alabama Central Labor Council. Welcome, Jacob.
Woo! Thank you, Jeff. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you to the Chattanooga Area Labor Council for inviting us to take part in this joint press conference. I also appreciate, obviously, the Iron Workers Local 704 for allowing us to use their hall. As he said, my name is Jacob Morrison. I am a member of the American Federation of Government Employees, Local 1858 in Huntsville, Alabama. And I am president of the North Alabama Area Labor Council, which is the regional federation of unions in North Alabama. And I want to start by tacking on a couple of things to what Jeff was saying about how these are real people. I was on a call on the way up here with state and local labor federation leaders from across the country, where it was reported that the air traffic controllers who have been let go, supposedly for cause, supposedly because of poor performance, like so many of these probationary employees across the country who have been laid off, all of them have had in their termination letters cited poor performance, even though that's obviously not the case, even though so many of these people have had excellent performance reviews only in the weeks prior, because in their termination letters it said it was because of performance. They were not being let go, they were not being laid off, it was not a part of a reduction in force. Because it was supposedly for performance, some of these probationary employees are having trouble accessing the unemployment benefits that they should have the right to access. In addition to endangering our skies and endangering the people that we serve and causing harm on these probationary employees, because of their lies, they are making it more difficult for them to put food on the table. In North Alabama, there are nearly 30,000 federal employees. 7.6% of every worker in North Alabama works directly for the federal government. That does not count contractors, and that does not count businesses that rely on federal workers spending their money with them. Approximately 30% of all federal employees are veterans. That 7.6% number is significantly higher in Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City. We have NASA, we have Redstone Arsenal, we have the Postal Service. It's over 10% in the Rocket City, and still more when you count contractors. When you look at the economy generally in Huntsville and North Alabama, it is entirely dependent on the federal government. Importantly, as my brother has laid out, these are not make-work jobs. These are jobs that keep our houses lit and our power on. These are nurses that care for our nation's veterans. These are administrators who make sure our elderly get their rightfully owed Social Security checks. These are folks who protect the rights of workers at the National Labor Relations Board and the Department of Labor. These are scientists who want to send America back to the moon and more. Now, after spending a couple of minutes on talking about the people, I want to address a couple of the narratives around the federal government. First, this whole idea about the government being too big. It's gotten out of control. It is not true. It is simply not the case. Contrary to that narrative, across the government, in agency after agency, what you will actually find if you talk to the people who work for a living in these agencies is that they are underfunded and understaffed. At the Social Security Administration, they have their lowest staffing levels in 50 years. And yet, obviously, more people receive Social Security than ever in the history of this country. At the National Labor Relations Board, the agency remains understaffed after flat funding in 9 of the past 10 years. In the past 2 decades, their staffing in field offices has shrunk by 50%. We have half as many people enforcing the National Labor Relations Act as we did 10 years ago. At OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, they have half the staff that they did in 1980. In Decatur, Alabama, where I have members, a manufacturing plant that creates appliances for GE, only weeks ago received a fine of approximately $200,000 for the responsibility that for the death of a worker that their poor safety practices resulted in. They got the fine less than a month ago. 2 weeks after they got that fine, somebody else at that facility was taken to the hospital because of a workplace accident. When this death happened this summer, there was immediately reporting of OSHA on site. So far, and I've been monitoring it closely, there has not been any discussion in the news of OSHA investigating this workplace safety accident at this facility. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has 30% less staff than they did in the 1980s. At the FAA, 90% of the towers are understaffed. It is also not a coincidence that the federal workers that are receiving the most ire from Elon Musk and his and company are the ones that would seek to put any level of constraint on him, because he believes that he should not have to worry about how his actions and the actions of his corporations affect others. He wants us to believe that when the National Labor Relations Board lays out clear and convincing evidence that he has fired workers at his companies because of their union support rather than their performance, that when the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau wants to ensure that whatever deals Elon's Twitter makes with Visa protects consumers, that when the FAA wants to ensure that when he blows up rockets in our airspace, it does not negatively affect Americans. He wants us to believe that all of that is just organized government attacking him and targeting him rather than protecting us from him. I will agree with Elon Musk on one thing, though. We need major government reform. But what I mean by that is the opposite of what he does. We need to unleash the public sector. We need to decrease our government's reliance on unaccountable contractors. We need to increase in-house staffing. We need to increase staff at watchdog agencies that protect workers and consumers from oligarchs like Elon Musk. And we need to fully fund and support agencies like the Social Security Administration and the Veterans Affairs Department that provide critical services to the American people. I also want to touch on another narrative, make one more point before I wrap up, that folks who are watching this and folks who are hearing me should not believe the lies that they are hearing from the Trump administration about telework and working from home. They're trying to make it seem as if federal employees are working from home more than our counterparts in the private sector, that we are not working when we are at home, and that we are wasting a lot of money. Elon Musk said that if you exclude security guards and maintenance personnel, the number of government workers who show up in person and do 40 hours of work per week is 1%. That is simply not true. And if you believe that, you need to reevaluate where you get your news. Because think about who federal employees are. Federal employees are letter carriers, nurses at the VA, people who fight wildfires, who work in the forest, who work for the Forest Service. If you have a conception of federal employees that can allow you to believe that only 1% go into the office every single day, you need to reevaluate your conception of federal workers, because your conception is not correct. The reality is that among federal workers who are even eligible for telework, the majority of federal workers are not even eligible for telework, but of those who are eligible, more than half of regular working hours were spent in person. Among those who are eligible for telework, 60% of all hours of telework eligible employees are spent in person. Vivek Ramaswamy said, here's the dirty little secret about the federal bureaucracy today: most people don't show up to work. If you exclude fully remote eligible workers, who is only 10% of the federal workforce, if you exclude those folks who do not have an in-person work site, federal workers are in the office for 79.4% of all working hours. That's according to the Office of Management and Budget's report to Congress on telework and real property utilization. Here's another one. Service backlogs and delays, unanswered phone calls, and no-show appointments are harming the health, lives, and aspirations of Americans. That's by Senator Joni Ernst. I have watched every single congressional hearing on telework. Not a single one of them has put forward a single piece of evidence pointing to telework as a reason for degrading services to the American people. The reality is that telework both increases employee engagement and helps recruit and retain workers who provide vital public services to the American people. And that's important because the reality is also that our counterparts in the private sector who do telework eligible jobs are more likely to telework. 25% of people in the private sector telework, 22% of people in the federal government telework. Private sector workers are more likely to telework than federal workers, according to the Congressional Budget Office. So as I'm wrapping up, I want to reiterate that I'm really proud that our labor councils are fostering stronger bonds. Knoxville, Chattanooga, and North Alabama all have higher than average proportions of federal employees, and this is incredibly important to our communities. It will be critical as we continue to fight for federal workers and for the people that we serve in Alabama and Tennessee, that we build on the relationships that we are establishing today, and I really appreciate it. I stand with the leaders from the other labor councils in Alabama and Tennessee in calling on members of unions in our areas to get involved in their unions and get involved in their labor councils, because we have no unions without you. You are the union, and if you do not participate in your union, we as a union cannot do anything. Our solidarity is our strength. We also want federal workers and folks who receive services from the federal government to share their stories with the AFL-CIO about how the Trump administration's attacks on federal workers is affecting them. For those of you in the media, as you report on the DOGE commissions and the Trump administrations, I hope you will reach out to unions and workers about how this is affecting people on the ground inside of these agencies and the people that we serve in the American public. And I hope you will consult the AFL-CIO's new Department of People Who Work for a Living, which is an initiative by the AFL-CIO nationally, designed specifically to respond to these attacks from Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Again, I thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. Our next speaker is a letter carrier from the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 462 in Huntsville, Alabama. Cordell Martis, come on up. I appreciate you being here.
All right. All right. Good afternoon, Tennessee. How y'all doing? All right, all right. It's a blessing to be up here and to be able to fellowship with you all and network and just discuss the situation at hand that we all deal with. You know, the bottom line, we get up every morning, we have to put our clothes on, and we have to commute to various places across the state at a certain time and go to work and service our sphere of influence. And so it's not by chance or circumstance that we are all here. And like what was said earlier, really stuck out. Jacob on the way up here was listening to a conference call, and I was talking with my father this morning, and the same thing said, right now, it doesn't matter your ethnicity, what side of town you're from, denomination or anything. Right now in America, it's just, you're either a billionaire or you're a worker. It's no gray line in between. And the quicker that we realize that, though we may, of course, it's more of us, we have a lot, so we may differ in opinion on certain things. However, we all can agree that we get up and we go to work. We are workers. And so we have to have workplace policies and things intact for us to provide for the economy, to keep this thing rolling around. This country was built off workers, hard working. It wasn't, you know what I mean, billionaires didn't exist, you know what I mean? Like, so everybody, we had to, as they say, get it out the mud, literally. We had to get up here and get our elbows and knees dirty. And so I just come from my sphere of influence. I'm a letter carrier out of Huntsville, Alabama. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, but I reside in Huntsville now, and that's where I'm employed at, branch 462. And right now in the letter carrier craft, we just had something kind of monumental go on. We, for the first time since I think 1970, we voted down a tentative agreement. And as I was talking with a couple of the brothers today, the thing about 1970 and now that's very similar is in 1970, the Postal Service, well, it was the Post Office Department then, I believe, we actually went on strike. Now, legally, we can't go on that, but wages was as low as $3 to $4 for the average letter carrier, and many of them had to get on welfare then, get other jobs to supplement the income and everything, and so wages were real low then. Well, in 2025, we're right back in that same spot. I mean, the dollar, the buying power is about the same for a starting career carrier, and wages are low. Inflation is going up 4 to 6% every year, while they wanted to try to give us a contract that raised our wages 1.3% every year. So I mean, it's just not cutting it. When I first started this job, and I came to orientation, a union guy, he facilitated the class, and he always gave this speech. He said one of the easiest ways to get, it was 3 ways to get to the middle class. You know, he said you was either, born into it. He said, or, you can get an education, get a college degree back then, and, get a job to go to the middle class, or you had to get a unionized job. He said that was the sure way to the middle class. And so I done that. I got me a unionized job, and for the first 7-8 years, I reaped the benefits of the people before me. I could actually say, my paycheck covered everything. But man, things changed for me just one morning, man, and my living situation changed, and had to move and getting everything. Everything just is almost like everything doubled up overnight for me. And I really, growing up, didn't know what inflation was, when everything, I just wanted to go to work, be a productive citizen, try to do my part or whatever. But it's like now I say, okay, now I'm in it. I see it now. I can feel it. My dollar is not buying what it once was buying, but my supervisors are getting more money. Everybody else is getting more money. You're saying the company is losing money, but I see it being spent in other places. And so, that's where the letter carriers, we just say, well, hey, man, we can't. There'll be a spit in the face to ratify that contract to go along with it. So we tentatively voted down, and one of the things that we definitely wanted was wages. I mean, because the cost of living is up, and so we want to be able to live a better life, to make an impact on others. That's one of the main things. And also, you know, the excessive, it's like now we have to work more just to get what we had. And so that's a lot more overtime, a lot more time you're away from your family. And it's just not healthy. It's taxing on the body doing the type of work, you know, working long shifts, and you're not getting what you were getting. You're doing more to get less. And when circumstances are dire like that, I can understand, but the money is plentiful right now, believe that or not. It's just where it's being funneled to, you know. And so that's one of the situations we all face as workers on that, overworked, underpaid type thing. And one of the things I've been hearing is about you know, corporate takeover. As we were talking about, they mentioned Elon Musk, and I just was doing a little research myself, and yeah, we have to unite together to oppose these billionaires, because they want to lobby to Congress to pass laws and legislation that's going to be more beneficial to them and more demanded on us. Long story short, the working class, we have been the muscle of America since its inception, and we still are. And we just have to realize how much power we have. So we have to continue to stick together, despite our many differences, because we got many differences. We come from all areas, but one thing common is, man, we got to make ends meet for our families. You know, Musk and Bezos and Zuckerberg and all of them, man, they got all the money, man. You know, they don't need more kickbacks and more tax cuts to get them more money off our dime, while we steadily, it reminds me, I felt myself, I said, man, I feel like the hamster on that wheel. You working harder, but you're going nowhere fast. And we've come too far in the labor movement to accept any of this. So it's just that, you know, I could round this all up, and, you know, like I say, as a letter carrier, we're up against privatization. They want to slash last mile delivery, like the rural areas and things, because it's not cost effective for the big wigs. You know, everybody is looking at the Postal Service now. That's how they're not making money. No, the money is being made. It's just not beneficial to their liking and their personal interest now. And so one of the things that we do have at the Postal Service is collective bargaining. And that has been a good tool, a shield to keep it. But, you know, the older carriers, they're retiring, and the new generation is coming in, and they're just not built the same way. So we just have to educate. It's a verse in the Bible, in the book of Hosea, said, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And because you reject knowledge, I reject you, and I reject your children. So that's real deep. So if I say nothing else, because I mean, we already know what's on the table, man. It's just an attack against workers. So we have to, again, come together and share the knowledge and share the power, because the knowledge is the power. And as long as we stay in solidarity, man, hey, the devil can't do nothing but go to hell, you know?
Our final speaker today is going to be Bo Hawk, president of the Knoxville Oak Ridge Central Labor Council. Bo, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you to the Chattanooga Labor Council and the Ironworkers 704 and President Meldal for having us. Is anybody else freezing right now? I'm going to just be speaking briefly and kind of reinforcing and summing up what others have already said really well. You know, starting off, it's what we're talking about today. The fact is, hardworking Americans who serve this country in the federal workforce, as Brother Meldal pointed out, 30% of whom are veterans of our armed forces, you know, versus 5% in the private sector, are facing unprecedented assaults on their rights as workers, from layoffs that destabilize the essential functions of our government to the unilateral rejection of already negotiated bargaining agreements. So these workers are making agreements with the government and they're just reneging immediately. In response to these attacks, as Brother Morrison pointed out, on the federal workers who daily serve this country and ensure the continued operation of its critical services, the ranks of federal employee unions are swelling. Nationally, the membership of the American Federation of Government Employees has surged to record levels, with more workers joining the union in the past 5 weeks than in the preceding 12 months. In our region, local unions of the government workers have exploded at rates of anywhere from 30 to 50%. These developments reinforce the fact that now more than ever, our priority as people who work for a living is to organize together, both within our own unions and beyond, across every economic sector in this country. That's the most powerful weapon we have to fight back, usually against corporate tyrants, but now we have billionaire unelected bureaucrats like Elon Musk to contend with. American workers, whether we're in the public or private sector, whether we belong to the industrial unions or to the building trades, must unite as one and stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the federal workforce and rally our communities to support them as they continue to hold the line and mobilize. As Central Labor Councils of the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, representing tens of thousands of workers in this region, we call on our unions and communities to join us in the fight against those who are advancing a fundamentally corrupt and immoral agenda that would decimate the American working class in the name of greed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who spoke, and thank you all for attending. Just some closing remarks. We want to end this with a call to action, and if you've been to any of these events, you know that the normal call to action is to call your elected representatives and tell them that you will not stand for this. Those in this room are probably represented by Bill Haggerty, Marsha Blackburn, Katie Britt, and Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. Those would be your senators, your representatives, Chuck Fleischman, Dale W. Strong, and Tim Burchett. Even if you've burned up their phone, filled up their answering machine, cluttered up their email box, you need to hit them up again, because our discontent is a matter of historic importance, and these people who so poorly represent us still need to have the heat kept on them at all times, so that when the historical record exhumes the sad story of these days, they could say, these people in the government acted in direct defiance of their constituents. And your voices are needed to make sure that that happens. Your voices are also needed in your own workplace as organizers. I know that all of the labor councils represented here are eager not just to represent the unions that are member organizations, but also to provide help and resources to folks who are in unorganized workplaces. Organization is the best protection against the kind of things that are happening at the federal government right now, and indeed against the kind of abuses that we see in unsafe workplaces, in places where there's discrimination and unfairness. Unions are your best protection against that. And in a time of uncertainty for the National Labor Relations Board, we all need to remember that a union is not just a legal category of workplace organization. A union is how workers act when they act together in solidarity with their coworkers, with their community members. So that is the true call to action, is to go to your workplace, go to your coworkers and organize, because their attacks are not an end. This is obviously just the tip of the spear, and we're going to need as much organization as possible both in our own workplaces and between unions. So reach out to your local labor council if you need resources to get started, and reach out to your coworkers tomorrow, if not tonight. I think that's it. We would field any questions if you have questions for a specific representative. But if we feel like we've touched all of the important things that needed touching, then we'll conclude and head out of here with a resolve to organize ourselves, organize today, organize tomorrow, organize for the future that we want to see for this country. Thank you all.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.
Which side are you on?